This episode of the Kind of Funny Gamescast is brought to you by Blue Apron. Not all ingredients are created equal. Fresh, high-quality ingredients make a real difference. So it's important to know where your food comes from. Now, here's the deal. Greg's obsessed with his Blue Apron stuff. He got a little buffalo chicken sandwich. He got some kind of meatball polenta, and he is all about it. For less than $10 per meal, Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. Blue Apron knows that when you cook with incredible ingredients, you make incredible meals, so they set the highest quality standards for their community of artisanal, I don't know how to say that word, suppliers, family-run farms, fisheries, and ranchers. Whether it's Japanese ramen noodles, wild-caught Alaskan salmon, or heirloom tomatoes, Blue Apron's bringing you the best. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/funny. You'll love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so don't wait. That's blueapron.com/funny. Blue Apron. Better way to cook.
Fun, but I want to know how you got your job.
So it's so funny hearing you guys talk about all this because, I mean, I am from such a different cloth when it comes to all this, where I very much am the video guy. But I never thought of it as just like, oh, I'm going to make videos of everyone else's written articles. It was always from the ground up, I'm making a video. And I think that kind of like, you were talking about being part of the second class after pairing them, kind of the blueprint that they made. I see myself as kind of the first of the second class when it comes to video. Like we had Fran and Nick and Eric and Ty and all those guys, and they kind of
big old CB.
Brennan and Chris Barradon, Craig Barradon. They defined what
the Tallahassee kid or Supple Hype. We were watching that video in the office today. Like somebody said, this video almost got 2 people fired.
Yeah, well, I mean, so
we'll talk about that some other time.
Well, I'll talk about it now. It's like the best thing ever. So IGN Insider, I mean, that was like kind of the big push into premium video content on the internet, and like we're talking early 2000s, so 2004. 5, so pre-YouTube, and what IGN was doing with video was like, it was next level. There was College Humor, and there was a couple other sites, but like I remember seeing this. I was an IGN Insider subscriber, and I was like, this is awesome that they are doing this crazy content that when you look at now, it's absolute garbage. But like we're talking about like
Fran's Closet.
Google that. They send 2 guys to TGS, and they're like, make video content.
They're like, do whatever you want, just make video, make premium video.
No, it was go to TGS and give people a feeling as to what it's like there.
So what they did was they decided to make a Western. Mm-hmm. In
2 guys
Japan.
from Louisiana.
They're just like fucking, so they made this like sprawling epic that was like 20 minutes long in 2 parts. And it's like, why? Why would you do that? But then the best other example is Fran's Closet, which you should YouTube right now.
Oh, so bad.
Just look up Fran's Closet and you'll find it.
That was a God of War video
exclusive.
preview.
That was a God of War exclusive.
It's a Nick Scarpino special, so you guys are gonna love it very, very much. It's one of my favorite videos of all time. It's essentially them making fun of their boss, our former boss, one of our very good friends, Fran Mirabella. You might know him. The third. But it was a God of War 2 preview, an exclusive preview. So instead of just showing the game, they decided to make a 10-minute thing that had a 5-minute intro of them sneaking into Fran's closet where there's this like horrible shit going on. There's Craig Barradon's butts in the video.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They spent so much money on props. Like they had a prop budget that was like $1,000. And I'm
God
like,
of War, this beautiful game. They put like a grindhouse filter
so
on
then
the
they put
entire
filters
video.
on top of the game, and they had each other race, and like it's just Nick in a horrible accent. He's playing a character, Uncle Lou, and I'm like, what the fuck? How is this a thing? But I remember watching that, not that specifically, but that type of content, and being like, man, like they're doing this, like they are making content out of it, and it was very, very inspiring to me. And pretty much instantly, I've told the story many times, but like I knew what I wanted to do, and what I wanted to do was make internet video. I didn't want to make movies. I didn't want to make TV shows. I wanted to make internet video. And I'm definitely probably the first generation of people to even have that as an option.
You came in and like I think you challenged kind of like our setup too, and you did too, right? Like I think there was one time in your career where I said, why are you in editorial? Right? Why are you not in the video department? And like, well, video makes the videos and editorial rights. And it was like, that we can't be like that. And you were a person I remember coming in, basically being the writer, performer, ideator. Like you did it all. You were like the YouTuber, basically.
Exactly.
Right? And it was really hard to figure out how to make that work in our setup, because like you would be like, oh, I'm going to make a video about how this franchise is shit. And then the editors are like, whoa, hold on. We don't think it's shit. Like, how are we going to do that?
Yeah.
Right?
And then that was kind of the challenge. And that's what was interesting, where it's like, you know, you guys kind of perfected what it means to write preview coverage, review coverage of video games, and then like you guys you came in more like opinion, long form stuff. With just kind of like making it entertaining or whatever. And for me, it's like from day one, it was like, how do we just make content out of this? Like taking all of that out of it, like how is it content? And it's so interesting because for me, Fran was like the dude. Like Fran was the guy. Like he was always the one holding me back or pushing me forward. Like it was like that push and pull relationship that's necessary to learn and to understand that you're not always right, even when you think you are, and all that stuff. And I think that they kind of had you for that. But what's interesting with me and your relationships, very special to me, because you are one of the Nintendo guys, of which there are very few in games media, because everyone wants to hate everything. But you love it, and so
also Nintendo just hires the ones that
right?
are really good. Okay,
so but whenever like cool stuff would happen, like we would always be able to talk about it and be excited about it. And like the few times I was on NVC, it was awesome.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, whenever I did something that was super outside the box of what IGN does, in terms of video, you always pulled me aside and were like, that was awesome.
Yep.
Or like, how do we do this more? And you always were pushing that. And I respected that a lot, because I knew you were on the other side. You know, you were like more of the editorial dude. And it reached a point where you're just like the grand overlord of everything. But you always helped. You never got in the way. You always helped. There was a lot of people getting in the way, but you were always trying to support the people that were self-starters, and that continues to this day. And I think that's the important part. What Greg was saying is so accurate. You look around IGN and a lot of internet companies like this, like even ourselves, and it's like every single person around you needs to be that way and is that way. And it's motivating and it pushes you, and it's when you hear no, it stings, because you're just like, oh, but I'm going to do it anyway.
It's an issue for creative people, right? And like when you guys started creating content outside of IGN as well, it's like, oh shit, what do we do about that, right? Like there could be now conflicting messaging outside of IGN by people who are at IGN. It's like, we always say, well, creators got to create, right? Like you have to build kind of like this playground, let people loose. But I can also afford being the element of chaos at IGN when I'm not the editor-in-chief or the managing editor, right? Like this person has to make sure that the review is up on the day that the game comes out or before, because otherwise the audience will be mad, right? And they do get mad. You guys know that. And so I could always afford being the guy saying like, no, let them experiment with it, because if they didn't have the review up, I could also be the guy saying, what the fuck are you guys doing? Why is the review late, right? Yeah. And so like I think the Destiny podcast is a great example where I think like Destin and Jose basically just started doing a Destiny podcast and didn't run it through the giant machine where it's like fill out the TPS reports to create a video. And I think there were a couple of people mad on the team saying like, well, we needed Destin to do this other thing. And like that was one of those points where I said, guys, like, you can't stop that. You can't stop that, because like we wouldn't have Beyond, we wouldn't have Rewind Theater, Daily Fix, IGN Weekly, any of this stuff. We wouldn't be on IGN Snapchat. We wouldn't have these things. We wouldn't be on YouTube if you didn't just say, you know what, I'm going to let this go. I'm going to let this run and see where it ends up, because you can always later on say, hey, we're going to dial back. And like you got to have that. You got to have that courage to also say, we've been doing this for a long time. Stop it. Right? Like writing previews, for example. Remember, we used to write, would be like, game comes out in 2 weeks, robot must write preview. Here's what's in game. 12 levels.
The number of maps.
High definition graphics, right? 12 maps. Like we had to let that go at one point. And like, it's hard, it's hard to do that.
So, I mean, kind of like looking at all of this, so talking about the different waves, whether it's the editorial or video, or now this kind of watch-read mentality where it is both editorial and video, or written in video. How is it kind of transitioning between those different things, and how have you been able to manage being there from the beginning and seeing it all, and where do you see it going?
Yeah, it's so the world is much more complicated now, honestly. And like what we have managed to do is like the days where people are up around the clock. And I remember like my E3s where Matt and I would not go to sleep like for 2 days. And like it was not good for our health, right? We would just say, hey, we have this kind of completionist attitude where we got to write about Putt-Putt's Great Barbie Adventure or whatever, right? Like because it's on the N64.
It was a badge of pride. Like that's the thing for my E3s. Like you were in the trenches and you knew everybody was in there. And I'll never forget end of my first E3, Damon trying to tell me, you don't need to write this preview right now about Babysitter's Club Murder Adventure on DS. And I'm like, it's the last one, though. And it was like 10:30 and everybody was going out to $7,000. And I'm like, no, I have to do this.
And so we've stopped that. Like, when you go to IGN now at 6 p.m., there may be a person there may be a person somewhere working on something, but generally we want to make sure people get out. That said, people then probably go home and play video games, which, they use that knowledge tomorrow on kind of creating a feature and stuff. So you never fully switch off and you're always on social. But we've tried to get at least we try to limit the amount of time that people put into on a daily basis so that they do have some free time. And they also need that free time to be creative and create the next thing, right? Because like for a while, we were just kind of going and doing the same thing. And so the next thing for us, first of all, the internet has changed, man. You can't just put out a website and like look at ComScore and quote advertisers or people in studios and publishers the numbers. It doesn't work like that anymore, right? Now we have platforms like Facebook, we have YouTube, we have Instagram, we have Snapchat, Twitch, all these different places out there, and suddenly you have this crazy challenge of getting all your content to all these different places. And then once you do that, you have the even bigger challenge of saying like, shit, the thing that worked on YouTube is not working on Twitch. The games that YouTubers care about, Twitch viewers don't care about. The stuff that works on IGN is not working on Snapchat. You know what our biggest story was on Snapchat Discover? That's our daily content channel, right? Like if you're in the platform, you swipe right, you get 14 new stories every day. It was Finding Dory. Right? Yeah. Finding Dory was the biggest thing on Snapchat. It's so different from the web. And so that's the big challenge, is try to figure out how to track all this stuff, how to produce all that stuff, how to have the right voice for all the platforms. And then the big scary one, how do you monetize all that? Because you can't serve the same ads across all these different platforms. You guys know that, right? Like you're afforded the freedom to create because you have this wonderful mechanism in Patreon where people, you're not the man, right? You're like, hey, sponsor us. We can create this awesome content just for you. And that works. I can't do that, right? I can't say, IGN, hey, give us your Patreon dollars, right? And so I got to figure out how to monetize all that in different ways. And man, it's hard. It's hard to grow a business when the internet is so fragmented, where at any point Zuckerberg can say, and now Facebook is the second internet, and everything that goes in there does not work outside. Yeah. So that's the big challenge, but that's also the big opportunity. And single edition of IGN Snapchat, you said like your review got read by 2 million people. Snapchat can do that in a day for one review, and it's insane, right? These numbers are so big. And so the concept of having all these kind of different mechanisms and getting to your content to an even bigger audience is super exciting to me.
So when you look at IGN now, like I feel like when we were there, it very much was there's the editorial team and there's video team. How do you kind of see it now when there is Snapchat and there is all these other different there's integrated marketing and all this thing? Like how do you kind of see the vision of the content creators?
I still think we suffer a little bit from the fact that we have been around for such a long time. So you still have these silos, right? There's some companies like on the engineering side, you have like product and engineering being one team, whereas in ours, it's still separate. We have moved video and edit closer together. It used to be literally that when you go to the IGN office, and again, if you're in town on the 14th, we're doing a tour, you can see that, there would be like an area for video people, an area for editors, right? You guys remember that? And like we broke all that up. Now everybody is kind of intermingled. You have a video editor sitting with news writers so that you can be more nimble and faster. So we're breaking those walls down. But there's still kind of there's still segmentation like that. But we don't hire writers anymore. Like every person who comes in to interview for a writing job, even for a wiki, like a wiki strategy guide paid position internally, we now do a screen test. We put them on camera and we see how they are. And we're not looking for like a perfect anchor or anchor woman. We're looking for somebody who has that spark, right? Like that connection. Yeah. And so I think that those are the biggest changes, like how we think about content creation. And then in some cases, right, like you guys know Darren Brazil, you all worked with him.
Unfortunately.
Darren was... Nice. Darren was a producer, worked for Fran. Now Darren handles all social video. So anything that is created for kind of the Facebook or Snapchat platforms. Yeah. Because the videos are so different. what performs on Facebook. You guys know this?
No,
too.
exactly. And again, I got to give a shout out to Darren, man.
Yeah.
Like what he's doing. I honestly think that where IGN's at right now is, since I've been visiting the site, like probably my favorite content to consume. I think that it's finally they're kind of acting on the trends instead of being super far behind in terms of video stuff, in terms of the social stuff. And I think that, and it doesn't, you know, all the reviews and all that stuff, like obviously those have just gotten better over time, and kind of that product is what that product is. And IGN is the best at that product. But in terms of all the other stuff, I think that with Snapchat and with a lot of the social video stuff, they are now paving the way for the future. Like you guys being on the Discover platform before anyone else, like I see other Snapchat curators and content creators doing what IGN did, like copying the formats that you guys made. And I think that's super awesome that you're pushing a new thing ahead, a new platform. And IGN's no longer just a website. IGN is this thing that is on every single platform and different on every single platform.
Yeah, and that's you have to have that courage though to be able to take that step back, because again, it's so hard to monetize when you spread thin across so many different platforms, right? Like you publish videos to Facebook, you're not going to make any money. You got to come up with a completely different kind of ad product and way of promoting and running and tracking it. And it's hard to do. And so that kind of stifles your creativity too, right? Because there's certain types of content that can reach millions of viewers on Facebook that you guys could quite frankly fart out. Like you guys are fully equipped to do that. You just got to put text on the screen because people don't watch unmuted, and you got to have some fun with stuff and create memes. But why, right? Like right now, it's marketing to your audience, maybe growing your following, but it's so hard to monetize.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I mean, it's super exciting to be able to do that in like a platform like Snapchat. Basically, I'm not the Snapchat age, right? There are a lot of teens, there are a lot of younger people. It has a bigger female audience than male audience. Like, I looked at that platform, I'm like, I don't get it. Like, where do you even start, right? Like, how do you create this content? And so then you experiment and you hire people who know and who are active. And Darren is a big Snapchatter, right? Like he was able to just kind of jump in and say like, oh no, what you're doing is all wrong. IGN First, nobody's going to care about IGN First. Quite frankly, Daily Fix, which is highly viewed content on the web, right? Nobody's going to care on Snapchat. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. And then you learn. And in some cases, you take some of that content back to the other platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? I mean, again, I commend you guys for listening to that and adapting with all that stuff. Because when I was there during the whole YouTube shift, and that was hard because that was the thing where it's like IGN was very much, they knew because they invented what video was. But then with YouTube, it's like I was coming in, I'm like, no, you got to do it this way. Yeah. And I feel like then we had Start and we had all this stuff. And it's like looking back on it, Start, I think, was a very, like one of the most important steps for IGN. Yeah, because it created this idea that personalities do matter.
Yeah.
And that making fun content, just content for the sake of it being content that people are going to consume as entertainment, is valuable, even if it's not making money immediately.
But the reason why we were afforded to do Start is because it was in a YouTube partnership, right? Mm-hmm. Like YouTube wanted more content that was long form, not just, back in the day, YouTube was dog on a skateboard videos, right? Mm-hmm. Like they wanted longer form content. And so they footed the bill for some of that, which afforded us to do like Take a Chance with, Great Show up at noon and let these guys just loose and do like a daily show for gamers. And there's some other cool programming on there. But I will say, like, I don't think we have figured out YouTube fully yet. And it might sound crazy, right? Like the IGN channel has 7.5 million subscribers. Not small, right? It's no PewDiePie, and they're like in Germany, there's Gronk. There are all these guys who have equal or bigger number of subs who made it happen by being kind of like being single personalities that kind of create this fandom around them. And I don't think we're there yet. I think we're still experimenting on YouTube, trying to figure out how to do that. And so what we started to do is like move content out, like Beyond used to be on the main channel and it got decent views, and we had to have the courage and have to say, let's move this out into its own channel, because then you allow it to grow with an audience that loves that team, loves that content.
They're there for that.
Yeah, and so like it's a small channel. It's like, GameScoop, Beyond, these channels have like 20,000 subs, but they also have 20,000 views on each episode. So you get in a 1-to-1 ratio, whereas like you put it on a channel with 7.5 million, they may have that 20 to 40,000 views, but it's like a small portion of the audience. And the negativity factor is so much higher because you get that Battlefield versus Call of Duty factor, right? Yeah. And so we're still experimenting with that. And, we're learning from people like you, quite frankly, and single YouTuber channels, how to play in that arena.
So final question on this whole topic then. Obviously, we are very much inspired by IGN and everything. what advice do you have for us going forward if we were to grow?
For Kind of Funny? Mm-hmm. Well, you know, money affords you more experiments, right? And like, I can't imagine how hard it is for you guys to not just manage the content, which is what we did back in the early IGN days, but you have to also figure out where the money comes from, you know, how you market yourselves. Like when you guys do events, it's freaking crazy what you guys do with such a small team. And so I think, one, you have to figure out, like, how do we not spread ourselves so thin, right? Like, I imagine when you guys go and travel to another city to visit a studio or do an event, like, shit doesn't get done back home, right? Like, don't you lose views when you have to do that kind of
we have to cancel our Twitch show and stuff.
Yeah,
like
the Twitch show, the daily show is the one that suffers the most. Otherwise, it's you take a work week and you cram it into 3 days or 2 days or whatever. Yeah. So you're just doubling up on shows and getting them out as fast as possible.
And so I think, I mean, your next hire, when you can afford it, should be someone who looks over the financial side from kind of like a platform's perspective. Like, you guys have followers on Facebook and Instagram. You need somebody who figures out, how do we monetize there? Can that, you know, almost like a salesperson, like an all-around salesperson who can then get deals from all these different companies to help you monetize that content, because you're strong socially and good with kind of audience interaction. It's very difficult to make money from events, for example, but events are, I mean, they're so full of life. You get to meet your fans firsthand. And so that's gotta be, you gotta have that in your portfolio, but that's not how you grow. I think you need to figure out all these different platforms. And then once you have somebody who does that, I think more money will come in, and that will allow you to do more things and experiment a little bit more, and hopefully break out from that like daily stuff. And then you guys have a lot of commitments too, right? Like with Patreon, you commit to doing certain things. You deliver an episode early. Why wouldn't you subscribe to the Patreon if you get it early, right? And
thank you.
Or you can watch it late. I'm learning all this stuff, man. Yeah. We're doing the IGN Patreon tomorrow. Awesome. We want an office on the moon. But yeah, like, look, that's my advice to you, because content-wise, you guys already know what you're doing. You got it. You got a fan base, and you do awesome stuff.
Thank you. Thank you very much.